Welcome to BoCo Summit, the Rural Broadband Technology Solutions Summit 2018. We wish to thank our sponsors for helping to create a path for fast, affordable connections. This BoCo Summit session is called Broadband and Business of Tomorrow with Kit Hale from MKB Realtors and Walter Grigg of Lawrence Companies, Michelle Crook with the Bank of Botetourt, Sheri Winesett with the Botetourt Chamber of Commerce will moderate, and also on the panel will be Meredith Hundley with the Valley's Innovation Council, Kimley Blanks with the County of Halifax, and Katie Connor with Virginia Tourism Corporation.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? I'm actually going to be standing up because we have a rather large panel. So our panel is Broadband and Business for Tomorrow, and it's focused on how broadband will impact business and people. So I'll just introduce you as you sit. We have Meredith Hundley, who is the program director for Valley's Innovation Council. And next to Meredith, we have Kit Hale, who is the managing partner for MKB Realtors. We also have, Kimley Blanks, the agricultural director with Halifax County, who I think you've already heard from. We have Michelle Crook. She's Senior Vice President with the Bank of Botetourt and Chief Financial Officer. And Michelle also is the chair of our Botetourt School Board and Broadband Commission. And we have Katie Connor, who is the Development Specialist with the Virginia Tourism Corporation. So thank you all for being here today. And we have Walter Grigg, who is the Senior Vice President of Lawrence Companies. He is the Executive Vice President of Lawrence Companies.
Up here. I'm glad to see you.
Hey, this is very unusual for technology-focused things, right?
I'm not sure.
And you've also had the pleasure from hearing from Walter today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. You know, our panel is going to answer two questions as they relate to business and people. And Meredith, I'm just going to go ahead and get started with you. How will expanded broadband help us attract high-tech companies?
Actually, I want to highlight the brain drain, because a lot of times when we talk about attracting high-tech companies, we think about the business parks. We think about, these central locations where we're locating our businesses, but it's actually how do you attract the talent that works in those businesses? And, I heard a couple of dismissive comments about the leisure use of broadband earlier, but who here is willing to move somewhere new that does not have broadband access? And maybe it's my millennial side showing, but it's the first thing I look for.
I wasn't willing, I didn't know.
But, looking at, as these high-tech companies are looking to bring in folks, it is the knowledge economy. Knowledge is the coin of the realm, and so we need talented people. And they want the amenities. We talk about the greenways. We talk about arts and culture. It's also talking about the infrastructure that people use in their off time and their on time. You want people accessible. It's a global market. They always need to be connected. So just like we don't evaluate whether or not we want roads on the basis of, are they going to use it to go to the movie theater? Are they going to use it to go to a ball game? We don't care. You need it there for all of these reasons. And so I would just highlight that as a point that maybe doesn't come up a lot when we're talking about economic development, when we're talking about high-tech companies. We're talking about the materials that they need to do their jobs. So I'll leave it with that for right now.
Thanks, Meredith. Kit, how will advances in broadband drive the value of real estate?
Thank you. Thank you.
gave you a
Well,
little
you did, and I'm like, here, stop. That's my part. I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me. There's so many factors in driving the value of real estate, and it's hard to narrow down to a handful of things. And there's sort of two sides to that: some things that drive value and things that affect marketability. And so an example of that would be if I refinish my hardwood floors, that may make my home more marketable, but it might not make it more valuable. If I put a new roof on, it might not affect value, certainly makes it more marketable. If I put in a new kitchen, it's going to make it more marketable, and it's also going to improve the value. So when we talk about broadband and all those cool things that were in the terminology that we're using these days, I heard some of the terms before, telemedicine, telecommuting, the learning, the distance learning, all those things add value, I think, in terms of marketability. And you said it, who would want, as a millennial, or even a aging boomer, to live in a place that doesn't have that type of access, whether it is those things that affect quality of life, or just, I might want to have a good streaming service I want to cut the cord. So in terms to affect value also, I called a bunch of my appraiser buddies, and they, at least at this point, they don't add any more value. If you have all things are equal in properties, one has broadband service and one may not. In terms of value, they do not place any more value. One home might not appraise for more or have more value, but it sure makes it more marketable. Now, at the end of the day, if I have a community that is more marketable and for all these amenities that have been mentioned, including broadband, my days on market will be less. And so my ask price may be more, and so that will at some point affect value. It hasn't been but probably 3 or 4 years that our multiple listing service, where it's our database, where folks will go in and search for bedrooms, bathrooms. We've added a field that has to do with broadband, has to do with internet service provider. And so folks are not only searching by schools or by bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, but also whether it has access to that type of technology. And so when we talk about aging in place, and we also talk about all those things that are important for our buyers and sellers, that type of technology is important. The last thing I would say is that for our sellers are relying on their prospective buyers to have access to the internet to search for properties anymore. The days of a seller or a buyer running out to get their Sunday paper off the driveway to look for homes that are open that day are gone. We advertise in newspapers for the seller's benefit. We don't advertise in the newspaper or other print media for the buyer's benefit, because by the time the newspaper hits the front lawn, they've already had a second cup of coffee. They've been on the internet. They've searched all the open houses in the area. They know what the schools are like. They know what the crime rate's like. They know where the closest coffee shop is, and they've Yelped it to see what star rating they have. So the consumers are much more empowered these days, which again, I think indirectly affects value of property. Thank you.
Thank you, Kit. Kimley, how will advances in broadband be a game changer in agriculture?
Well, I had to write down a few notes here. I get a little passionate when I start talking about agriculture. That's the field I work in.
You're in the right position then.
But we've all alluded to this. We no longer deal in just local economies. We are a global economy. Even in Bogota and even in Halifax County, we're dealing on a global level. And without high-speed, affordable broadband, our producers, farmers, just can't compete. They can't communicate with corporate offices. They can't communicate with potential buyers across the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, it doesn't seem like we always think of agriculture as just the farmer on the farm driving his tractor, and that's an old school thought of what agriculture is. The field of agriculture is humongous. I mean, it is from the farmer on the farm and the tractor to manufacturers to retailers to innovators to research, and all of it's going to be based in technology. And if we have our basic farmers who can't access it, the agribusiness isn't going to come, the processing firm isn't going to come to your community, the manufacturer's not going to come there. So we need broadband in order to advance economic development within increased homes and educational opportunities, et cetera. And sometimes for agriculture, the only way they can learn about something is to download a video and they can't watch a simple 2-minute video. We're not talking about Netflix, a full-length movie. They just can't even watch a 2-minute video. Also, we're encouraging farmers to diversify, and one of the things we encourage them to get into is agritourism. That's your vineyards, your distilleries, your pick your own, et cetera. Well, guess what? They need to market what they're doing to consumers, and they do that through social media. And when you can't get online, you can't market your product. And that's a direct-to-consumer opportunity that might be lost to our farmers when they can't get online. And this has been alluded to earlier, is precision ag. I mean, precision ag is the future for agriculture. And one of the things that's happening with especially smaller farms is the profit margin is shrinking for farmers. And so they're relying on opportunities to better manage the resources that they have. For instance, the technology's coming down the pipeline for drones, and they will actually be able to test soil and tell farmers where they need to focus their inputs. So, example, fertilizer, they don't need to apply the exact same amount across 100 acres. This 20 acres over here only needs this much per acre, and this, so they can actually save money and get better product as a result. Also want to say that we've alluded to it again before, is our young people, our farmers are aging. We need young people to get into agriculture. And the only way they're going to do that is technology. Our young people have grown up on technology. They're not going to want to go and farm somewhere where they have the $1 million tractor, but it doesn't have broadband access. They're going to want access to technology because they think in those terms, and they will use the technology to better their farming operation.
Thank you. And actually, Michelle, I'm going to hop over and ask Katie, because I think that's a great segue into Katie, is give us 2 specific examples of how expanded broadband is going to positively impact the tourism industry in Botetourt and the region.
Well, I think about just even my position with the Virginia Tourism Corporation. When I first started, they asked me, are you able to work from home? And I very excitedly said yes, without even realizing that I really couldn't. But I live in a part of the county out in Buchanan that only a MiFi hotspot is the option, and 2 to 3 bars is the best connection. So there are days, depending on how the wind blows, because that is a real thing, how many leaves are on the trees, what the weather's like, if I can work from home or not. So when I work with tourism businesses and saying, what's your connectivity like, there are times where I understand their troubles of, well, I wasn't able to get my website updated, or I wasn't able to have the proper GPS coordinates in an email to someone that's coming out to my farm or coming out to my winery this weekend because I couldn't get the internet to work. The struggle is real. I understand that. So I think having better connectivity so our businesses connect with the economy is really important. And then we mentioned earlier, it's not about the jobs that exist now, it's about the future jobs. Amy mentioned that, and we talk with a lot of kind of young folks about what is it that you want to fix. It's not so much what is it that you want to be when you get older, but what is it that you want to fix, because it's possible that job doesn't exist. And if there are entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs out there, some of that demographic doesn't even know what an entrepreneur is. So the more that we can educate them on how they can start a business, how they can be part of that kind of gig economy that, we've talked about the gig economy for a couple of years now. If I'm working from home in a 9-to-5 job, but then I also have that entrepreneur bug and I want to have my own business in the future, but I don't have that connectivity, that's really going to impact kind of the future businesses of this community as well as the region. So I think those kind of the business connecting with the consumer, as well as the opportunity for the future workforce to dream bigger than what exists now, is really important and is going to really kind of direct how our community looks in the future and what that kind of tourism it's not the traditional sense of the word. It's not a brick and mortar store. It could be someone that is making a certain product and shipping it, but maybe they will have a brick and mortar store. But if they know they can have the connectivity now and grow that business and be in one of our small towns, be on Main Street, I think that's what we're all working towards.
Thanks, Katie. Michelle, how will advances in broadband help you better serve your customers at the bank?
Bank of Botetourt was founded in 1899. On Thursday of this week, we celebrate our 119th birthday. So we were founded before there was a state corporation commission, before the FDIC existed, and certainly before internet and broadband existed. And our role as an intermediary between depositors and those needing loans, that has not changed in 119 years, but our delivery mechanisms and how we service our customers certainly has changed. And to give you some statistics, just real quick, we have 18,000 consumer customers in our bank, half of which, more than half, bank online, mobile banking, bill pay. And that number percentage keeps growing. Every year, that's as the demographics are, moving that direction. And of those 9,000 consumer customers that bank online daily, we process in the past year 152,000 transactions for these customers. So it's a necessity for us and for those delivery channels and that platform. So without their ability to either have some type of cellular service or Wi-Fi to facilitate those transactions, if they do not have that, it hinders their ability to perform economic transactions. But another way we service customers are for the employees of Bank of Botetourt that come to work every day. And we have offices from Fairfield to Eagle Rock to Troutville to Smith Mountain Lake. And when there's a hiccup or a disruption of service, nothing can drain morale faster for employees that are struggling that day with slow Wi-Fi, slow internet service, and then that mood then goes out to our customers because they get frustrated if they can't have access. So it's just vital to what we do, and especially our rural communities and our rural customers. That's especially here in the county, what we're working towards to have those options available to those customers as well. From my role as chairman of Botetourt County Schools, I want to thank, Dr. Nicole for your comments on the digital divide because, the southern end of the county does have nice broadband access points. The northern end, where I live very close to Amy, to Walter, to Katie, to Arlene, to Gary LaRue, and we all struggle. And the digital divide then trickles down to our students and the affordability in the north. I do live in an area where I can get very decent internet. My bill just came on my phone. $380 is my monthly bill. I want to quantify that for you. That's what it takes for my family. And I mean, we're working during the day. It's not like we're sitting at home. I don't even know what Netflix is. I can't even imagine it. Because I can't imagine that you can just stream a movie for 2 hours. That would cost me $30. I mean, I have to quantify that. And my stepdaughter, throughout the month, she'll say, how are we doing on gigs? How are we doing on data? I mean, that is part of her world is where do we stand? How much data do we have left this month? Because, we have to, conserve our data for different purposes for work, entertainment, school, and all school projects have online textbooks, online components to assignments. So just from a bank level, school board level, personal level, we're all looking for solutions and appreciate everyone being here today.
Walter, last but not least.
Me again.
What kind of impact will expanded broadband have on the cost of doing business?
So on cost of doing business, so speaking on behalf of my business, so I'm in the transportation business right now, and was brought here in a lot of ways to focus on converting our business, so trucking company, basically, transportation company. So 86 years old this year, so not quite 119. We're in the running. Our industry, transportation itself, and this is excluding this notion of driverless trucks, which in and of itself will need broadband technology to move all that data around, is a very commoditized industry. So where we make our profits and ultimately serve our customers with better rates, if we can achieve them, transportation is so expensive in any commodity or any good that you move around. Our equipment generates terabytes of data. People don't think, a quintessential tractor trailer driving down the road, it's pretty high tech. Our new units that we just purchased and received this past week have 26 computers on board. They are grabbing anything from suspension data to engine data, and all that data passes back in packets when they send their GPS locations. And then we actually model that. That's one of the things I focus on. We model all that data. So these tractors are very expensive, these pieces of equipment. And we are at scale, so we have hundreds and hundreds of them, thousands of trailers. So passing all that data back, terabytes of data, modeling all that information, we have to be able to pull all that information down. If not, it just stays up there and we do nothing with it. So circling that around, if I can, and my team, my organization, we're also working to create a culture in a very old business and a business in an industry that does things kind of the old way, which is very manual. We are working to convert our business into a technology-oriented business, i.e. use that data to make decisions, use that data to make our operations run more efficiently. So to circle it back around, we're creating a culture of people that are data-oriented, running a transportation business where it's not as much grit and grime and oil and grease, still important, still part of the industry, but having people that are data and information-oriented. So for instance, if I have a thought or an idea at 10 p.m. and I want to pull a data set down to look at what's my injector failure, because you blow an engine up, it's a $30,000 overhaul. So if I want to look at trending and modeling and injector data, I might need to pull 4 gigs down, and I run it and model it and whatnot, and just get a sense. So that gives an example of the where I live, just the ability to answer a question, to have an aha moment. And if I am hiring people that are oriented that way, and they have their aha moment, and they want to suck a data set down, pull a database table down, 10 gigs, can I attract them to an area where they can do that? Can I rely upon them to have those aha moments and be able to think these things through? So turning that back around, how do I better serve the customer and reduce my costs and provide the customer better value? It's ultimately, one of many things, is having access to reams of information and be able to do things with it such that I can reduce my costs. If I can reduce my costs, I can compete better in a relatively commoditized industry. If I can compete better, I can provide my customer either better service through me predicting failures, and being able to mitigate failures, and or reduce cost and provide them a better price.
Thank you. And I think what's really interesting about your comments is that it almost impedes a culture of innovation. You're trying to build this culture of innovation to accelerate growth and keep up with growth. So really interesting comments. I want to keep on schedule. I know we have a schedule. So real quickly, I'm going to start with Walter and just tell us real quickly how you can be part of the solution, and then just pass it to the next person.
So it started with passion. I kind of gave you my passion speech there at the beginning. I know that there are solutions. I know that there are people in this room that know how to solve these problems and get this connectivity, affordable broadband to the places that it needs to be. So for me, it's just trying to be the champion for the county and just cheerlead and advocate it.
I think inclusion, this is a great first step towards being part of the solution, is being at the table, being part of the conversation. Tourism is in the business of experiences, and the more positive experiences that we can provide to our visitors, the better. Where there's over 100 assets that are tourism-related, trails, wineries, breweries, restaurants, lodging, of all unique and very different sizes and shapes. And the more experiences that we can provide on a positive level versus I had a 2.5-hour detour, even though it was beautiful, it wasn't part of your itinerary that day. That's okay. We have beautiful 546 square miles of the county, but if we aren't able to improve those experiences and have the right people at the table, then I think we're missing the opportunity. So just being part of the conversation.
Well, Bank of Botetourt has volunteered our rooftops to the Board of Supervisors should fixed wireless be an option for some of our rural areas. Obviously, we could use our social media platforms to help educate or to foster discussion among, our customers or our residents. And, just, for the providers that are here today, just, basically begging to try to help our county get to a more level playing field for our students and for our citizens. And, I think we have a lot of very bright and intelligent people in this county, and I think we should be able to figure this out. And that's my hope and my plea, and I appreciate everyone's interest today.
Thank you. My suggestion being that I'm with Halifax County is to continue to be in front of your Board of Supervisors and do it publicly. Go to the meetings and make your comments or offer to get on the agenda to make a presentation. This is where we are at. And that also is an opportunity to keep your general public, your residents, your taxpayers, your businesses updated as what's going on, because they're going to drive the demand. And if they feel like something's stalling or not happening, they will be the ones to step up and support your efforts. But I do think staying in front of your community leaders with updates and reports is one way to do it.
Thank you. Our Realtor organization is about 1,500 members locally, 35,000 statewide, and about 1.3 million nationally. This is an important issue to us. So we are not only have a very influential lobby, but we also have great relationships with elected officials, appointed officials, regulators, and those sorts of things. And so, as has been said, to be at the table, to be involved and engaged, the valley, including Botetourt, we all benefit. I live in Roanoke City. We all benefit by having good, healthy economic development. So when all of us can pull in the same direction in terms of Botetourt County, it just increases the ability to evolve economically, and we all win. So I think being engaged and at the table is important, as has been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will say broadband's kind of what I do for fun, studying it, but my day job is Valley's Innovation Council, and Sheri and I are part of the Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Coalition together. And I think in those conversations about how do we support a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem, it is thinking about what does that mean for rural areas. It's one thing to talk about the innovation corridor in downtown Roanoke and research commercialization going on there. It's another thing to say we need basic infrastructure in more rural areas. And so I think that it's important to just keep that as part of the conversation, because unfortunately gig economy, which I initially thought just meant it was innovation and broadband enabled economies, is actually something a little bit different. Who knew? But just keeping all of that in mind, because I think the gig economy is in a large part enabled by the gigabit internet, which is how I initially thought of it. So that's my 2 cents on that, is that thinking of this as essential infrastructure for the ecosystems, and that we're not all at an equal playing field yet. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much for participating. We really value your comments, and we'll move on to the next panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we want to hear from you. Email us, bocosummit@botetourtva.gov. Engage with us on our journey. We give a special thanks to our community volunteers, and special thanks goes to these organizations. Again, thank you, our sponsors, for helping us to create a path for fast, affordable connections. BoCo Summit, the Rural Broadband Technology Solutions Summit, is presented by Botetourt County of Virginia.